Imagine you are exhausted, bone deep, soul level tired. Yet somehow, you still pick up your phone and call someone, anyone. You don't even know what you want to say. You just know that silence feels more dangerous than the conversation you're about to force yourself through. Think about that for a moment. You are depleted. Your body is asking you to rest. But something deeper, something louder, is demanding company. This isn't laziness. This isn't weakness. This is a psychological pattern running so deep most people never even realize it has a name. Look around at modern life, and you'll see this everywhere. People eating alone with headphones in, people watching TV just to hear voices in an empty room, people texting at midnight, not because they're excited, but because the quiet got too loud and their mind too honest for comfort. We've built an entire civilization designed to help us avoid ourselves. Social media, streaming platforms, open-plan offices, all of it keeps the noise going. The world rewards busyness and punishes stillness. Solitude has been quietly rebranded as loneliness, and loneliness has been rebranded as failure. So people run, not from others, but toward them, even when their body is waving a white flag, begging for rest and silence. There is a name for this compulsive need to escape yourself through other people. Psychologists call it a form of solitude aversion, rooted in what researchers describe as self-concept threat. Being alone forces you to meet the version of yourself that social performance keeps hidden. That version is honest, unfiltered, and often deeply uncomfortable. Most people have never been truly alone with themselves, not really. There is always a screen, a sound, a person standing between them and their own reflection. And here is where it gets disturbing. The avoidance isn't random, it's strategic. Your mind has learned that other people are excellent distractions from your own unresolved questions. In this video, you are going to uncover why some people physically cannot tolerate solitude, even when they desperately need it, and what that reveals about the self. You'll understand the childhood roots of this pattern, the neurological mechanics behind it, and why our culture has made this psychological wound both invisible and celebrated. More importantly, you will walk away with something rare, a new relationship with silence, one that doesn't terrify you but instead becomes the most powerful tool you've ever held. If this kind of deep psychological content resonates with you, consider subscribing not for entertainment, but because your mind deserves more than surface-level thinking. Now, here is the uncomfortable truth that almost no one is willing to say out loud. Most people are not afraid of being alone. They are afraid of what they will think about when they are. Sit with that, because the moment the noise disappears, the thoughts that come rushing in are not random. They are the thoughts you've been postponing for months, sometimes years. The regrets you haven't processed, the grief you bypassed by staying busy, the questions about your life that have no clean answers yet. Silence delivers all of them at once, and so the mind brilliantly, desperately reaches for another person, not for love, not for genuine connection, but for cognitive shelter from its own unfinished business. This is where the system becomes visible. Because modern society doesn't just allow this avoidance, it profits from it enormously. Your attention is the product. Your discomfort is the algorithm. Every notification, every autoplay video, every people you may know suggestion is an engineer's solution to one core human problem. You might stop scrolling and start thinking. The entire attention economy is built on the architecture of solitude aversion. They didn't create your fear of being alone. They simply found it, monetized it, and called it connection. And the cruelest part? The more you use these escapes, the less tolerance you build for silence. The threshold keeps dropping. 10 minutes alone becomes unbearable. Then 5, then 2. Psychologists have traced this pattern back further than smartphones, further than television. It begins, for most people, in the earliest rooms of childhood. Children who grew up in unpredictable homes learned something powerful and dangerous. Being alone meant being unprotected. Solitude carried risk, not peace. If a parent's mood could shift without warning, staying close, staying visible, became a survival strategy. Connection wasn't comfort, it was armor. And armor, once forged in childhood, doesn't simply disappear when the danger does. It becomes personality. It becomes the habit of always needing someone nearby. Now that child is an adult, exhausted, overstimulated, people-pleasing their way through life, and still unable to sit quietly in a room without reaching for someone else's presence. Ask yourself honestly, when was the last time you sat in complete silence, no phone, no music, no background noise, and simply allowed your thoughts to arrive without managing them? For many people, that question triggers a subtle but real anxiety, because the mind trained to avoid itself has also lost the skill of self-witnessing without judgment. Here is the neurological layer most conversations skip entirely. The brain processes social interaction and self-reflection in overlapping but competing neural networks. When you engage socially, the default mode network, the brain's self-referential system, becomes partially suppressed. Other people, quite literally, turn down the volume on your inner world. This is why people feel relief in company even when they're exhausted. It's not emotional connection providing comfort. It's neurological suppression providing escape. The brain learns this quickly. Social interaction equals inner quiet. Solitude equals inner noise. And noise, when you've never been taught to navigate it, feels like danger. This is the psychological breakdown hiding beneath what looks like a social personality. What the world sees as warmth and sociability is sometimes just a very elegant coping mechanism. And here is where the cultural critique must be made plainly. We celebrate extroversion. We reward availability. We pathologize the person who needs solitude to function. The person who cancels plans to spend an evening alone is called antisocial. The person who fills every hour with people, even at their own expense, is called fun, reliable, present. We have built a social reward system that applauds self-abandonment and punishes self-awareness. And people are paying for that applause with their psychological health. Now comes the deeper layer. Because not everyone who avoids solitude is running from pain. Some are running from potential, from the version of themselves that only appears in the quiet. Silence has a way of surfacing not just wounds, but dreams. Not just regrets, but visions. The person you might become if you stopped outsourcing your inner life to other people's energy. That is its own kind of fear. Because becoming who you could be requires confronting who you currently are. And that confrontation demands solitude that most people never allow themselves. The internal conflict, then, is not simply between rest and socializing. It is between the self you've constructed for public consumption and the self still waiting to be discovered. Every time you choose noise over silence, you delay that meeting. And the longer the delay, the more foreign your own inner voice becomes. You become a stranger to yourself. The consequences of this are not abstract. Chronic solitude aversion leads to dependency on validation, on distraction, on the emotional labor of others to regulate your internal state. It leads to relationships built not on genuine desire for connection, but on fear of its absence. That is not love. That is not friendship. That is emotional outsourcing dressed in intimacy's clothing. But here is the empowerment shift. The fact that you recognize this pattern, even partially, even uncomfortably, means the avoidance is no longer fully automatic. Awareness is the first fracture in the wall. You do not have to overhaul your life overnight. You begin with 5 minutes. 5 minutes of intentional silence where you do not manage your thoughts, you simply observe them. You treat solitude not as emptiness to be filled, but as a space where the most important conversation of your life is waiting. The one you've been postponing. The one with yourself. The practical mindset shift is this. Stop measuring the quality of your rest by how many people surrounded you. Start measuring it by how honestly you showed up to your own experience. Solitude is not the absence of connection, it is the foundation of it. You cannot offer genuine presence to others when you are running from your own. The final truth, the most powerful idea in everything said here, is this. The person you are most afraid to be alone with is not broken. They are just unmet, and they have been waiting, patiently, in the silence you keep filling. Every great thinker, every deeply whole human being shares one quiet discipline. They learn to sit with themselves without flinching, not because it was easy, because it was necessary. You are not too busy for solitude. You are too afraid of what it will show you. And what it will show you is not a wound, it is a door. If this video cracked something open in you, leave a comment with one word that describes what you feel right now. Not what you think, what you feel. Share this with someone who never stops moving, someone whose busyness feels less like passion and more like escape. They may not thank you immediately, but someday, in the quiet, they will.